So, if you're listening to our podcast, it's a pretty safe assumption that you're a growth minded individual. Would you agree? I feel like people who are listening to the general topic of how to be a better DM, it shows that you want to improve. You want to grow your abilities as a DM. And it's expected, right? Because the DM is the one who's expected to do most of the work in prep. They're expected to be the most entertaining, the most knowledgeable about the rules, everything, right? But that obviously brings up the question that I'll be addressing, for a short while in this podcast. Should players also have a growth-minded mindset? And more importantly, should they make goals to improve? And on our part as DMs, should we help them make that happen? But first, before we get into that, welcome to How to Be a Better DM, the show for DM hopefuls and forever DMs who are just trying to get through the new year. Just kidding, you're trying to triumph in the new year. I'm Tanner Wayland, and I'm excited to talk about this topic with you because, like a lot of you, I have a mixed relationship with goals. While there's part of me that absolutely believes in the usefulness of a goal to basically quantify and plan towards a dream I have, I also understand that, goals don't always pan out. It's hard. It takes planning. It takes really implementing. But I still believe in the usefulness of setting and acknowledging a goal in general. Now, as DMs, we were always thinking about ways that we could improve the game so we can have a more fun and enjoyable time. But the thing is, isn't that also true for players? If they planned how to improve how they played, how they prepped background on their characters, how they offered to, do various things for the DM, whatever it is, isn't it true that players along with DMs can also improve from goals? Because I don't think that we think about that often. I don't think that we expect our players to either consider that nor be accountable to that. And obviously when I say accountable, it kind of kills the vibe. And that's one thing I want to get just clear right from the start. While I am going to talk about the idea of creating an environment of growth and of goal setting, even with the players, it's important that it be a natural thing, a fun thing, a lightening type experience that gets people hopeful and excited for the future, rather than being like, oh, you said that you would have come up with a better system for keeping track of loot and you didn't, so sucks to be you. That's not the goal. The actual goal is to help everybody just think like, oh, what could I do to make this a better experience in the long run? Because that would be a powerful thing. Now, how would you go about doing this? One way that I've seen some people online do it, I've personally never been in a session that has done this, but I love the idea and I plan to do it next time. It's the stars and wishes style. There's probably other names for it, or people maybe don't even name it. But it's the idea of, at the end of a session, going around to each of your players and being like, hey, what was your favorite moment? And also, what do you hope for the next session? Or what do you hope for the future of the campaign? Because it doesn't have to be just like an immediate thing. And that gives players a chance to both reflect on what's going on, what has happened, and also plan for the future. Now, some DMs don't do this, and instead, more individually after the session or in between sessions, during the week, month, whenever, they'll check in with the players and be like, hey, what would you like? Okay, great. Now, how are you feeling about your player character? Do you feel like we're exploring the backstory enough? Do you feel like I am, facilitating what you want to do? There's ways that you can do this, but the point is just taking time to reflect and to ask your players is half the battle. Now, you can obviously go further than that. and actually ask them and be like, hey, do you have any goals? And this is one of the important points. You can acknowledge that there are different types of goals. There's the kind of goal that a player themselves need to work on. That's very much like, oh, how they want to play their character. If they want to prep a backstory scene, then there's the ones you can collaborate on, which would be, like I said, a backstory scene. It could also be, your the player character wanting to have a special ability or a fun little move, and checking in with a player like that gives you a chance to do that in a way where if you're just trying to rush it and move along with the campaign, you might never do. So aside from the goals that they can work on personally or that you guys can collaborate on, another kind of goal is almost more of a wish. And that's like what kind of adventure they would want. This is an important thing to ask because while we often feel like we're locked into a specific type of adventure and a specific type of flow for the game, there's a lot you can do that can change that up. You can absolutely hear from a player that they're like, oh, I'd love to do a mystery. Or maybe you're the kind of like, oh, you built a whole world. And because you built a whole world, there's not a lot of dungeons. And a player is just looking forward to a good old-fashioned dungeon crawl. Asking them, being like, hey, what kind of adventure would you like? Or what kind of campaign? Or how is there anything that you feel like is missing from the current one? Or that you would like? Asking questions like that, it's not exactly a goal for a player to set, but it is encouraging them to have desires beyond that, right? Now, here's a question beyond that. Goals as a group. Is that fitting? Is it worthwhile to be like, hey guys, let's have a goal? I think absolutely. Specific types of goals though. I think if combat is very slow, then you can obviously take time at the start of a session and even preferably at the end of the last session before you really start implementing the rule. Just take time and be like, hey, I noticed combat's really slow. I looked up these different tips online or from my favorite podcast or whatever. What do you think about implementing this? Like the 60-second timer on things and me telling you if you're on deck and everything like that. And you could also make goals for, hey, you guys like role-playing a lot, right? What do you guys think about taking over and running some of the random NPCs that pop up here and there? Would you like that? Discussing things like that. It's not just about, checking in. It's about finding out and making a plan together as a group, which that's goal setting. At its heart, that is goal setting. And so in my mind, if you take away anything from this whole topic, it's that goal setting should be woven into the game. It should feel like a natural part of it. And as much as we talk about checking in with your players, checking in should also mean encouraging them to seek for more in the campaign in both easy ways, like just being like, hey, is there anything that I could change? Oh, cool. Yeah, that's easy. Or bigger ways where you're like, hey, how are you liking your player? Is there anything that you're missing? How about this? What if you had a goal to do this? And I'll help you out. Maybe they aren't having fun with how their character like actually fights in combat or their utility outside of combat. And maybe that's where you're like, okay, let's make a goal here. One of the ways I could help you is kind of create a moment in which your character gets some different abilities, or maybe they just fully change to a different class, or maybe let's actually, together, okay, so you're just a plain sword and board fighter. And that's kind of boring for you. Let's talk about either doing a different subclass or look at some of these feats that kind of add fun, not necessarily min-maxing elements, but more actual like narrative, fun ways to do it. And I think that you can take a proactive role in having your players actually enjoy the game more. So yeah, absolutely talk with your players about goals. Encourage them to have them in the first place. And just remember, it's very easy once a campaign gets rolling to forget all about this and be like, hey, they've got their characters, I've got the story. We're all just trying to keep this going and hopefully finish it because many campaigns don't get finished. Enjoy the journey. Be willing to stop and pause and be like, hey, should we want more within the current adventure? Or should we pivot? Maybe a different one. Maybe we wrap this one up. Or, okay, my current interactions with a certain player has been like this. It doesn't always have to stay that way, right? Sometimes you can absolutely change the interaction. Let's say that you're like, okay, a certain player is a bard and he's just always off doing stuff, and it's a little bit detracting from the rest of the adventure. You could talk with them separately and be like, hey, I love that you're doing this. I would love to spend less like side time doing it. I had some ideas, but and then like present some ideas to them, be like, I'd love for you to get in these shenanigans or these side projects within the main adventure, so I'm going to try. Can you tell me what you would like your character to be doing? There's multiple ways to approach it, is basically what I'm trying to emphasize here. So that's my challenge, is to find out a way to address goal setting with your players that works for you. Now, if you want it simple, once again, the Stars and Wishes kind of post-session wrap-up is a nice, quick way to do it. You can even go more in depth by following up and asking very directed questions with your players between sessions. Whatever it is, just make time for it. And that's the challenge. I hope that you really, learned or considered a lot. It's not like this is crazy amount to learn. This is a concept that's very familiar to us, but maybe we just don't think about it in terms of our players. And I think that could change. And I think you would enjoy that. So I hope that you do. And until next time, let's roll initiative.